You are standing at your kitchen sink right now. You turn the handle, water comes out, you never think about it, but every single month, a bill arrives that says you owe somebody money for that water. Now picture this. Right now, in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, a family of 9 just finished dinner. They washed the dishes, they bathed the children, they watered a half-acre garden, and they have never paid a water bill. Not this month, not last year, not in 200 years, 200 years, 0 bills, same clean water. My name is Eli, and I spent 3 years driving the back roads of Holmes County, Ohio, sitting at kitchen tables with old-order Amish farmers, asking one simple question: why do you not have a water bill? The cistern you may be seeing on your screen is a real one. I photographed it last October on a farm outside Millersburg. It was built generations ago, it still works, and it has never once been connected to a utility. The average American household pays somewhere between $500 and over $1,000 a year just for water. The Amish pay nothing. Same usage, same comfort, same clean water, straight into the cup. The system that makes it possible costs about $50 in parts you can buy at any hardware store this weekend. And on a standard 1,500 square foot roof, in a region that gets 36 inches of rain a year, it can collect well over 20,000 gallons in a single year. That figure is not something I made up. It sits right there in an old USDA Farmer's Bulletin from the 1940s, and modern university water researchers land on the same kind of number today. Now, if you already own a house, maybe a brick ranch built in 1962 with aluminum gutters and a basement that smells a little like an old penny, and you are thinking this is only for people building from scratch on 20 acres in the country, stay right with me, because this is for you. You do not need to rebuild your house. You do not need to dig up your yard. You do not need a contractor, an engineer, or, for the simple version, a permit. The roof you already own, the gutters you already have, the downspouts already bolted to the side of your house. Those are 3 of the 4 parts you need, and they are already there. By the end of this video, I am going to walk you through the exact $50 build, show you the one part almost everybody gets wrong, and give you the honest truth about which uses are safe and easy and which ones take real care. Stay with me, because the part most people miss is not the barrel. It is what happens before the water ever touches the barrel. Let me take you back to that first morning outside Millersburg. I was standing in a farmer's yard. I will call him Samuel Fisher, which is not his real name, because the Amish generally prefer not to be named, and I respect that. But the man is real, and the farm is real, and the cistern I am about to describe is real. It was early September. The fog had just lifted off the hollow. Samuel had been awake since 4, and he was carrying a galvanized pail back toward the house, and inside that pail was just over a gallon of water, cold as creek water, clean enough to look right through. He had not pumped it from a well, he had not carried it up from the spring. He had collected it overnight from a piece of shade cloth tilted against the morning breeze, the dew condensing on the cloth and running down into the pail while he slept. I asked him what that little dew rig had cost him. He thought for a second and said, maybe $12, and the cloth was already in the barn. $12 for a gallon of clean water every night, free, while he slept. And that was the smallest piece of the whole thing. The main system, the one that fed the kitchen and the laundry and the livestock and the half-acre garden, was a roof catchment with a first flush diverter and a buried cistern. The parts cost about $50 in his great-grandfather's day, and adjusted for what you can actually buy today at a farm supply store or a hardware store, it still comes to about $50. And if you already have a barrel or an old food-grade drum lying around, the storage is free. I asked Samuel where the filter was, the big expensive filter I assumed had to be hiding somewhere. He just pointed at a plain clay jug sitting on the kitchen shelf. I said, "That is it?" He said, "That is it." The cistern itself, he told me, was older than his father, and in all those decades it had never once failed. Now here is the part that should make every single homeowner watching this stop and really think. Every roof in America sheds a predictable, measurable amount of water, and the number is not a mystery. For every 1 inch of rain that falls, a roof sheds roughly 0.6 of a gallon of water for every square foot of its footprint. So do the arithmetic on a modest house. A 1,500 square foot roof in a region that gets 36 inches of rain across a year sheds well over 20,000 gallons of clean water every single year. 20,000 gallons off an ordinary roof in an ordinary climate. And even in a genuinely dry place, even in Phoenix, Arizona, where the rain barely cracks 10 inches a year, a typical suburban roof still produces several thousand gallons annually. So where does all of that water go right now on your house tonight while you are watching this? It lands on your shingles, it runs into your gutter, it pours down your downspout, and then it runs straight out into the street where it joins a storm drain, and from that storm drain, in a great many towns, it gets carried off to a treatment plant, processed, and then sold right back to you by the gallon through a meter, with a monthly service charge of around $28 tacked on that you pay whether you turn the tap on once or not at all. You are, in a very real sense, paying a company to take the free water off your own roof, clean it, and sell it back to you. Samuel Fisher does not pay that charge. His father did not pay it. His grandfather did not pay it. And the reason, as Samuel was quick to tell me, is not only religion, though the religion is real. The deeper reason is that the Amish simply never let go of one piece of equipment that the rest of America forgot how to build and forgot it even existed. It is called a cistern. And in the early 1900s, almost every farmhouse in the eastern United States had one. The agricultural census of the time counted them in the hundreds of thousands. By 1960, they were nearly gone. Not because they stopped working, because somebody started selling something else. Now here is something I did not understand until I had spent real time around these families. The Amish did not invent rainwater harvesting. Nobody did. It is older than any government, older than any utility company, older than the United States itself. There is archaeological evidence of rainwater catchment in the deserts of the Middle East going back 4,000 years. The Romans built great cisterns underneath their houses and their cities. The early American colonists built cisterns before they built barns, because water was the first problem you solved on a new piece of land. What the Amish did was simply refuse to give it up when everyone else let it go. And that brings me to the closest thing this story has to a villain, though I want to be very careful and very honest with you about what kind of villain it actually is. Starting around the early 20th century, municipal water boards began forming across the industrial Northeast. By the 1930s, those boards had grown into full utility districts, with the legal power to compel people to hook up. By the 1950s, the federal government was pouring money into municipal water infrastructure at a scale never seen before, and homeowners who had collected their own rainwater for generations were quietly told that their cisterns were unsanitary, that their downspouts were dangerous, and that their hand pumps were a relic of a backward and dirty past. The cisterns got filled in with gravel, the hand pumps got sold for scrap metal, the downspouts got redirected out to the curb, and every single one of those families started paying a monthly bill that their own grandparents would have laughed at. But here is where I have to be fair, because I am not going to sell you a cartoon. There is no secret spreadsheet anywhere that calls this a conspiracy, and there does not need to be. The market simply rewarded the thing that could be metered and billed, and it quietly punished the thing that was free and could not. Nobody had to plot anything in a dark room. Money flowed toward the meter and away from the rain barrel, year after year after year, and over the course of about 50 years, an entire country forgot that the rain falling on its own roofs was free. Let me give you one piece of proof that this is not just thrift, that in the hardest of times it has been the difference between staying on your land and walking away from it. In the winter of 1934, in the very worst year of the Dust Bowl, a Mennonite farmer near Hutchinson, Kansas kept his entire family and all of his livestock alive through the whole drought using a cistern his father had built decades earlier. Think about what that year was. The municipal wells in the surrounding counties went dry, cattle died by the thousands out in the cracked fields. Families packed what they could carry and abandoned farms that had been in their names for 2 generations because there was simply no water. But that one farmer had thousands of gallons of clean water stored underground, collected patiently over the years from the roofs of his house, his barn, his chicken coop, and his summer kitchen. And he had a hand pump that needed no electricity to work, which mattered enormously because the power lines would not even reach his county for years yet. So while his neighbors loaded their trucks and drove west, he stayed, and his animals lived, and his family lived. That story did not survive by accident either. It is written down in an oral history project that sits in a college archive in Kansas to this day, the farmer's own words taken down decades later, waiting on a shelf for somebody to walk in and read it. That is what I mean when I say this knowledge has been hiding in plain sight the whole time. It is not lost, it is just sitting quietly in archives and farmyards, waiting. So let me show you exactly what is in the system, because the parts are not exotic and none of them will surprise you. There are 4 of them, and you have already seen 3 on the side of your own house. The first part is your roof. You already have it. Asphalt shingles work just fine. Metal works better because galvanized steel sheds the cleanest water, and the Amish know this, which is exactly why almost every Amish barn you will ever see has a metal roof. Wood shingles work too, though they leach a little color into the water. The roof is your collection surface, and the important thing to understand is that it is already doing this job right now, whether you collect the water or not. The second part is your gutter and your downspout. You already have those too, running along the edge of your roof and down the corners of your house. If they are clogged with leaves, clean them out. If they sag, tighten the brackets. That is the entire upgrade to the second part. Nothing to buy. The third part is the one almost everybody gets wrong, and it is the part I told you to wait for at the very beginning, the part that happens before the water ever reaches the barrel. It is called a first flush diverter. It is nothing more than a vertical piece of plastic pipe capped at the bottom with a small drain hole and a floating ball inside it. Here is what it does. When the rain begins, the first gallon or 2 coming off your roof is the dirtiest water of the whole storm because it is washing off all the dust, the pollen, the grit, and the bird droppings that have been sitting up there since the last rain. That dirty first flush runs down into the vertical pipe and fills it. As the pipe fills, the floating ball rises, and when the pipe is full, the ball seals the opening at the top. From that moment on, every additional gallon of clean rain bypasses the full diverter and flows straight into your storage. When the storm is over, the diverter slowly empties itself through the tiny hole in the bottom and resets, ready for the next rain. The parts for one cost between $8 and $15 at any hardware store. And this single cheap component is the difference between water you would happily run onto your garden and water you would not. The Amish have been using a version of this made from a piece of old stovepipe and a whittled wooden plug since the 1800s. The fourth and final part is your storage. A food-grade 55-gallon barrel runs about $30 used, and you want food-grade specifically, not a drum that once held chemicals. The Amish typically start with 2 or 3 barrels chained together with a length of overflow pipe up at the top, so they fill one and spill into the next. But you can start with exactly 1 barrel, and when you do, the whole system, roof you own, gutters you own, an $8 diverter, and a $30 drum, comes to roughly $50 all in. So before I walk you through the weekend install and the honest truth about safe uses, here is where everything I have gathered from these farms lives in one place. Every method, every measurement, every technique from this channel is collected together in the description below in something called the Amish Home System. Now stay with me because the install is simple, but there is one part about safety I am not going to let you skip. Here is exactly what you do this weekend, and I am going to describe the simple, safe version first. The one almost every town in America already allows without any permit at all, which is collecting water for non-drinking uses, your garden, your lawn, washing the car, flushing a toilet. Walk around the outside of your house and look at every downspout you have. Pick the one that drains the largest area of roof, which is usually on the back of the house. Measure the height from the ground to the bottom of that downspout. You need about 30 inches of clearance underneath it to fit a barrel with a spigot so you can actually get a watering can under the tap. If the downspout hangs too low to fit a barrel, do not worry, a hacksaw cuts through it in about 30 seconds. Now go to the hardware store and buy a downspout diverter. It is a simple L-shaped fitting that you splice into the downspout, and it splits the flow between your barrel and the original pipe to the ground, which means that when your barrel fills up, the overflow automatically goes right back down the original path it always took, so you never get water pooling against your foundation. Get yourself a food-grade 55-gallon drum, and I want to stress food grade, a barrel that once held food or beverage syrup, never one that held industrial chemicals. Drill a 1-inch hole near the bottom and thread in a brass spigot with a rubber washer to seal it. Drill a 2-inch hole near the top for the inlet coming from your diverter, and drill one more hole at the very top for the overflow. Cover that inlet with a piece of fine mesh screen. A doubled-over square of ordinary window screen works perfectly, and this screen is not optional, because an open barrel of standing water will breed mosquitoes, and we are not in the business of trading a water bill for a mosquito problem. Screen it, and the problem disappears. That is the whole installation. 2 hours of work on a Saturday, about $50 in parts. And on that one single downspout, you will collect somewhere between 600 and 1,200 gallons of water over the course of a year, depending on your region and your rainfall. Let me put that in real terms. That is enough water to carry a vegetable garden through an entire summer drought. That is enough to wash a couple of cars a week all season. That is enough to flush a low-flow toilet around 2,000 times. And every single gallon of it is a gallon you did not buy from the city. Now scale it up, because one barrel is just the start. Add a second barrel and chain it to the first with a short length of pipe up at the top, so the moment the first one fills, the water simply spills over into the second. Add a third, and now you are holding well over 150 gallons of free water in reserve against the next dry spell. The Amish in Holmes County typically run anywhere from 500 to 3,000 gallons of storage per household, and they fill all of it from the very same kind of roof you already have over your head right now, with the very same rain that is going to fall on you this week. And let me deal head on with the legal question, because I know for certain that some of you are sitting there thinking your city or your state is going to come after you with a fine. For ordinary non-drinking use, the barriers you are imagining mostly do not exist anymore, and where they once did, they have been falling fast. Take Colorado, which for years had some of the strictest rainwater rules in the entire country, all because of old 19th century water rights law that legally assigned every drop of rain to downstream users before it ever hit the ground. Even Colorado changed its mind, and back in 2016 it passed a law specifically allowing homeowners to collect rainwater off their rooftops in barrels for outdoor use. Texas goes much further than merely allowing it. Texas exempts rainwater harvesting equipment from sales tax, and a number of Texas counties actually offer rebates to people who install systems, paying you to do the thing you were afraid was illegal. The legal tide has not just shifted, it has reversed completely. The very states that once forbade catching rain are now writing checks to encourage it. So, before you scale up to anything large, take 5 minutes and look up your own city's rule on barrel capacity, and I will bet you almost anything that for a barrel or two in the backyard, you are completely in the clear. But here is what I really want you to understand, because this is where the story turns. You are not just saving money, you are recovering something. A piece of self-sufficiency your great-grandparents had, that your grandparents had, that somebody somewhere decided you should quietly do without. The cistern was not removed from American homes because it stopped working. It was removed because it could not be metered. That is the whole mechanism, not a dark room full of plotters. Just money flowing toward the thing that could be billed and away from the thing that was free, year after year, until a country forgot. The Amish remembered, and they are still remembering, every morning, in every cistern, on every farm. There was a court case in Minnesota that almost no national outlet covered properly, and it tells you just how completely this knowledge slipped out of public life. A county there tried to force a group of very conservative Amish families to install modern septic systems for their wash water, their gray water, the water that drains from washing dishes and clothes. These families did not use septic systems. They never had. Instead, they piped their gray water out into earthen basins filled with wood chips, where the wood chips and the soil microbes filter out the solids and the grease as the water drains slowly away into the ground. It is a simple, old, living system. The county told them to hook up to a modern system or face heavy fines that could climb week after week, with the threat of worse behind them. The families pointed out, in writing, that more than a dozen other states already permitted exactly their method, and that their faith plainly forbade the modern technology the county was demanding. The fight dragged on for years and climbed all the way up through the court system. And here is why I am telling you about a septic case in a video about catching rain. Because buried inside those court filings, written down under oath by expert witnesses on both sides of the argument, is one of the single most detailed public descriptions that exists anywhere in this country of how the Amish water system actually works in practice. The state's own expert testified about what is in gray water and why she believed it was a hazard. And the Amish side rebutted her in patient technical detail, explaining exactly how the wood chip basin neutralizes those contaminants over a period of weeks through microbes in soil. That filing was not written by a farmer in a barn. It was written under oath by lawyers and engineers in front of federal judges, and then it sat in the public record for years before almost anybody outside the case ever noticed it was there. What that document quietly tells you, in plain language, is that these families are not merely catching rainwater off a roof. They are running a complete, closed water cycle on their own land with no input from any town system and no output to any town system, and they have been doing it for generations without making the surrounding community sick. And once you truly absorb that, once you see that this works not as a theory and not as a survival fantasy, but as the daily lived practice of real families in real American counties today, the question quietly flips. It stops being whether a person could possibly do this, and it becomes why on earth you have not already started. Now I have to stop and be completely straight with you, because this is the most important part of the whole video, and it is the part the internet usually gets dangerously, recklessly wrong. Everything I have described so far, the garden, the lawn, the laundry, the car, the toilet, that is the safe and easy use, and that is exactly where I want you to start this weekend with confidence. But drinking the water is a different matter entirely, and I am not going to hand you a casual recipe and send you off feeling clever, because rainwater coming off a roof is not automatically safe to drink. Think about the journey that water takes. It runs across shingles that shed grit and sometimes chemicals. It passes over bird droppings and dead insects and pollen. It runs through gutters full of rotting debris. And depending on the roof and the flashing and the age of the house, it can pick up metals, including lead, on the way down. So please, hear me clearly on this one, more clearly than on anything else I have said tonight. Do not ever assume that roof rainwater is drinkable just because it looks clear in the barrel. Clear is not the same as safe. If you ever intend to actually drink your collected rainwater, you do two things. First, you get the water tested by a certified laboratory so you know what is actually in it. And you treat it following the published guidance of real authorities, the CDC, the EPA, and your own local health department, every one of which puts out exact, current, step-by-step instructions for disinfecting and filtering water to a drinkable standard. That guidance exists, it is free, and it is written by people whose job is to keep you from getting sick. Use it. And here is one specific, pointed warning, because this particular mistake can land a person in the hospital. You will run into people online telling you to dump pool shock into your tank to purify it. Be very careful. Many pool products are not pure disinfectant at all. They contain added clarifiers, algicides, and stabilizing chemicals that are absolutely not safe to swallow, and even with the right product, getting the dose wrong carries its own real dangers. Purifying drinking water is not a guess and pour kitchen job. It is a follow the official instructions job, with the correct product and a tested result, or you do not do it at all. And as for that charming old trick of dropping a piece of broken clay flower pot into the bottom of the tank, the one the old farmers swear by, I am going to be more honest with you than those old-timers ever were. A loose fragment of terracotta sitting in a tank is a piece of folk tradition, and it is a nice one, but it is not a certified filter, and it does not make unsafe water safe to drink. Real ceramic drinking water filters are specially manufactured, fired to precise standards, and laboratory tested, and they are an entirely different thing from a chunk of broken pot. So enjoy the old tradition for what it is, a bit of history, and never ever let it stand in the place of real testing and real treatment for water you intend to put in your body. Catch the rain for your garden today with almost no risk at all, and treat drinking water as the serious, careful, by-the-book project that it genuinely and truly is. I asked an older farmer I will call Eli Hostetler, who has collected rainwater on the same Ohio land his family has worked for over 100 years, what the secret was. He looked at me a long moment, took a slow sip of coffee from a chipped white mug, and said, "There is no secret, you just have to do it." And then he added, almost as an afterthought, "The hardest part is believing it will work. Once you believe, the rest is just buckets and pipe." I think about that line all the time. The hardest part is believing it will work, because for most of us, raised on the idea that water comes from a faucet and a faucet comes from a bill, the notion that a roof and a barrel could replace any of that feels, somewhere deep down, impossible. It feels like cheating, but it is not. It is happening right now in dozens of states, on hundreds of thousands of farms, and in tens of thousands of off-grid homes nobody is even counting. So here is where I leave you. You stood at your kitchen sink at the beginning of this video. You turned the handle, water came out, and until tonight, you did not know that the rain falling on your roof tomorrow could fill a barrel this weekend for about $50 using a system older than the country you live in. You did not know because nobody told you. And nobody told you because nobody in the chain between you and that rain, not the home builder, not the city, not the hardware store, not the bank that wrote your mortgage, makes a single dollar from you catching it yourself. But now you do know, and what you do with it is the only thing left that matters. If you are the kind of person who believes that real, simple knowledge gets quietly pushed aside when there is no profit in it, you already know what to do next. Walk around your house this weekend, find the downspout, buy the barrel, install the diverter, and the next time it rains, stand at the window and watch free water pour into a barrel that nobody can meter. Then come back to the comments and tell me one thing. Did you grow up in a house, or did your grandparents have a house with a cistern, a hand pump, or a rain barrel? Tell me what state and what year. I read every comment, and the memories you leave are how this knowledge gets carried to the next person. If this is the kind of recovered knowledge you came here for, subscribe and stay with us. Because next week I am showing you the $35 copper coil an Amish blacksmith uses to make free hot water from nothing but the sun and a south-facing window, with the plans pulled from an obscure 1970s archive. Until then, go find your downspout, go buy your barrel, and remember this: the rain is free. It always was. They just stopped telling you.